Going live. Okay, so I'm live. Normally there is a chat in which I can answer questions, but now I have to see live stream. No. I wanted to see if I can check out this live stream. I'm going to see if I can find the conversation. Live stream. Yes, I can. Okay. 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 So now I can actually see the, if it's all right, I can now see the chat function of this video. Although there is very much delay in it. So last time I did this, I used my phone to film, and I used my phone as a camera, and I could follow my the chat on the computer. It doesn't work for some reason. I don't know why. So now I am filming with my phone, and I'm trying to check the chat on the computer. But there is a delay, so if you have a question or a remark, I'll try to keep up with it, but there is a delay. So what are we going to do today? This is my old Van Gogh set, Talens van Gogh. This is student quality paint, but this is very good student quality paint. In fact, this is so good that my daughter graduated from high school this year, and I wanted to give her a very special gift. So I offered her a 48 color Rembrandt Talens set, so the professional watercolor set, and she said, no, I love my Van Gogh, so I don't want to, change it around. And then I realized that even though this is one of my oldest sets, I mean, these paints have been replaced a couple of times already, and sometimes I've added some convenience colors that I found somewhere. But this is my oldest paint box that I've had for over 20 years now. And I have to say that this is still, if I go on holiday or wherever, and I want to take just a few paints, I always take this one with me because it's simply that good. Then I'm going to compare. I made how can I say this? I made this list of colors, permanent yellow, the 24 range, and I've written down the pigment number, the pigment names, and I'm going to compare these Talens van Gogh student quality paint with my collection of Talens Rembrandt artist grade paints, because I want to see how big the difference is between the two. There are many people these days who, when they start with watercolor, go straight to the artist grade watercolor paints because they feel they need the expensive paints, and that's really not true. Not always. Sometimes, some pigments like the PG50, which this one is, that is a really absolutely fantastic pigment to have in artist grade, because I don't even think it exists in student quality paint. Usually it's a very dense mix of a couple of pigments if they try to get very close to that color. But otherwise, student grade paints can be really, really lovely. So I have to say, I also own Cotman, and that's the very first paint I started out with tubes. And the Cotman, I didn't, I liked it very much years ago, but I recently purchased a big box with the 44, 45 colors for my youngest daughter to paint with as a starter set. And I tried them, and they were all pans, and I felt they were horrible. They were very hard in releasing color, and they were nowhere near as lovely as I remember the tubes were. And I'm not sure if that's because they've changed the composition of the paints, or that it is a difference between tubes and pans. I mean, these are all pans, the Rembrandts and the Van Gogh, but they are really easy to work with, and they give really great color. Also, this color chart that I keep in this box is 20 years old. So as you can see, this is Van Gogh, and this is still very, very bright. This was done on, I think, Canson Montval, the lightest paper. So this is not the best watercolor paper, but as you can see, the colors are still, after 20 years, they are still, very good. So I'm going to start painting now, and I'll just take you on this journey. What I also wrote down is the pigment numbers, because there's only one color that I don't have in the Rembrandt, because I actually made a mistake in composing my Rembrandt collection, and that's the 331 Madder Lake Deep. I don't own that one in Rembrandt. And the other remark I want to make is that both sets are old colors. That is to say, Talens has renewed their collection. I'm getting some more information on that this week, if all's well. So then I can give you some information on that. But I just want to start giving you an overview of what the difference between student color and artist grade paints really is, and so that you can try and decide whether you actually really need to step into artist grades, or that student grade is really fine. So in general, student grades have less pigment in them, less dense, but at the same time, they are usually all very light fast, whereas artist grade paints are not all light fast. You have to know exactly which paints you are painting with. For instance, the Rose Madder Lake Deep that I don't have in the Rembrandt is a super fugitive color. So that's something that in the student grade paint with the same number 331 is a light fastness, has a light fastness rate of 1, which is really, no, 2. So that's less fugitive. Right, let's start, because you're not all here to hear me blab. If you, for anyone who just came in, I can see the chat, not all the time, but okay. I'm filming with my phone, and I'm watching my own live stream on the computer, but I'm not checking it all the time, because there is a huge delay between what I'm filming and what I can see on the screen. So, right, here we go. So we're starting out with 254 permanent lemon yellow, and something that Van Gogh is really great at is that, you know, the color, it picks up really easily. So this is a beautiful, very bright, basic lemon yellow. And now the 254 of the Rembrandt. And that too, you know, it picks up so quickly. It's just, it's wonderful. And this is the exact same pigment. So there's probably less binder in it. Okay. You can see that this one is brighter than that I'll have to wait until it dries, but this one looks a lot brighter. It's PY 184 Bismuth Vanadate Yellow. Okay, now we move on to 268. And 268 is Azo Yellow Light. laying it down a little bit thick. That's how I usually work. Okay, and now the Rembrandt, the 268 is here, and just look at you know, the color releases so quickly. And as you can see, there is a lot more pigment in this. Adding a little bit of water to create some flow and let the paint behave the way it does. Okay, 270, Azo Yellow Light. I love Azo colors because they are, just like the quinacridones, usually very bright. And then the 270, whoops, this palette is a little bit, you know, it's not the best. As you can see, there are a lot of new pans here. This is a collection I've been working on collecting to review. So I actually purchased quite a few pans in the past months, and then it turned out that Talens have renewed their collection, but not all art stores carry their new collection already, or carried, I have to say, because it's been a while. That you can see here in the yellows, I think, especially here in the top, that the artist grades yellows are a bit cleaner, even though these are extremely bright and lush, you know. It's just a little bit more intense. Right, one of my favorite colors, Gamboge. And that is a very warm yellow. And what I find really strange about Gamboge is that, you know, it's a color very close to Indian yellow normally, or the way that I'm used to. And more in all kinds of brands, I see it replaced with yellow oranges. And it shouldn't be yellow orange. It's just a pity when they do that. 238. You know, so much color coming from this. And this is a very different pigment. This is the Van Gogh Py 154 and PR 101. So this is a Py 150, which was nickel azo, and that is one of my favorite colors because of its brightness, and because when you mix it with other colors, it just brightens up all the colors you mix it with. It's just, you know, it's, if you like really bright colors, you should compose a set of quinacridones, azos, and phthales, because that's really pretty. And here you can see that actually this one looks a bit more intense than that one, but I still like that one better. Although I have to say, when I look at these when they dry up, you know, the colors are a bit different, but they are, there's no difference in quality. Let's see. Oh no, exactly. Ask your Luna, and that's exactly what I noticed, that people haven't or are not comparing them much. The Rembrandts are now, no, I think they are available in 10 milliliters, I think. Well, the Rembrandt collection, I am still awaiting a new brochure that I've requested this week, because the thing was, I was trying to make the collection complete to give a full review of the Rembrandt, because I really love this brand very, very much, and I'm working with it a lot. And I noticed that some people were a little bit, how do you say that, doubtful about the brand, and I wanted to show everything. Um, but Rembrandt has changed their entire collection. Well, not entire collection, but they've made a lot of changes. So first I was missing 10 colors and I wanted to buy them last weekend. And now I have to buy 54. And I even already have all the special glittery colors. So, but without those, I have to buy 54 because a lot of my colors have been taken out. And color numbers have been adapted. Some, I don't know what exactly they do with it, but they've improved the recipe, and they have added a lot of single pigments, and they have ditched the 5 milliliter tubes, and they have now moved on, I believe, to 10 milliliters if I'm correct, so bigger tubes, which I think is fantastic because I use a lot of paint, always have. So for me too, it's important to have bigger tubes because then it's just a little bit cheaper per milliliter. That is really good news. And also the colors they have added now, from what I've seen on the internet, is a really fantastic of the collection. Do you say that? An extension, renewal, whatever. I think it's going to be really lovely. So the only downside is now I have 54 colors to to collect again, and well, it's artist quality, so it's expensive, and yeah. Okay, so moving on to 266, which is permanent orange. This is a color, I'll show you. This pan has never been replaced. This is a color I simply don't use. I always make my own oranges, or I use an Azo, which if you use the Azo, because they're always so bright, if you use them with contradictory colors like blue, and then it already pops out a little bit more orangey. So I hardly ever use orange, but anyway, this is the 266 orange. And this is a color I just don't like, but it's got nothing to do with the quality. It's just, I love orange, but I don't like orange paint for some reason. This is composed by PY 154 and PR 254. So this is already a composition. Now, the 266 permanent orange, artist grade. Okay, it's beautiful. I think in the end I have to say with these 5 colors that the artist grade paints look cleaner, even though these are already fantastic. I mean, these I think in color are better than the White Knight, for example. So 311, that's another color I hardly ever use, Vermilion. I don't know why. But this is also still the original pan. So, but that's the thing, you know, no matter how many paints you have, in the end, you end up using only a few. And when you paint a lot, you develop this personal palette of colors. So it's actually quite nonsensical to desire the full collection of paints. But anyway, somewhere along the line, I became kind of a pigment freak. So 311 Vermilion, and these are not the exact same pigments. This is much darker. If you hear anything strange in the background, that's my bird, a kakariki. He can also say a couple of nasty things. Okay, I checked it out. No, the shop where I buy often has them too. They didn't have it last year. No, exactly. Talens have replaced them. Well, not recently, but recently. I have missed well, there were lots of circumstances, and then the COVID situation came and things were busy. So I've actually missed about a year of keeping track of the Talens collection. The first thing I noticed was, I think, the shimmer. No, the dust colors, the Van Gogh dust colors, and then I noticed shimmery palettes from Van Gogh, and then I noticed there was Rembrandt shimmer, but I constantly thought they were additions to the existing collection, and I only found out last weekend, you know, and I live in the Netherlands, so this is quite embarrassing, but I only found out last weekend that they have really created a new collection. So yeah, do I say your name right? Askia Luna? Askia Luna. No, I also don't really, I don't use the orange tones. I usually stick to these Azo colors, Azo and nickel colors. You've both, Nano Vega, both brands, both in bright pigmented and light fast. When it comes to glazing, Van Gogh are a nightmare because they are loaded with filler. Okay, I'm gonna have to try that out. I have to say, when I glaze, I always use my senneliers because they are, from all the brands that I have, best in glazing. And my other techniques, I'll show you two paintings I did. These are, I have to wait until these pop up in front of the camera. There is so much delay. I mean, it's like almost 20-second delay. But paintings like these that I did last week and this one, I hardly do glazes, but I do a lot of layers and not much glazing. Some glazing, but not much. So then I don't use the senneliers. But I think my technique, I don't use as much glazing. I do use a lot of glazing in my illustration work though. And then I always go to sennelier. But for the base colors, I use this brand a lot. Yeah, mothers do have a tendency to want to say a lot, don't they? I'm a mother myself, and I have to admit that I'm one of those blabbing mothers as well. Just ask my daughters. So that's why I can do a live, because I can talk so much. I had a lot of training. Right, number 370, permanent red light. Yeah, had to count to make sure that I was using the right color. I did a couple of commissions a few years ago, and then I was looking for the perfect red. That was quite a challenge because reds are not very light fast. And I remember I used the Van Gogh one at some point in time. And then the PR55. Okay, so this is 370. I have to check that one out. That wasn't a new one. I felt really silly when I found out that Rembrandt had replaced so many of their colors. So I'm glad to get this brochure where I can see at least what they've changed. Oh, this is very nice color when diluted. The permanent red light. But it's kind of funny that usually artist grade paints have a tendency to be single pigmented, and now in the student grade paint, this one is single pigmented and that one has two pigments. So right, permanent red deep, 371. It's got to be this one. Yeah. This is a beautiful color with a bluish undertone in it. Very, very, very intense. So now 370 permanent red deep. It looks brighter. It's different. This has a violet pigment in it, and this is the pure red pigment. It's kind of interesting to see what the difference is. You know, and we're so spoiled because when you think about it, when you want to, you can mix so many colors yourself by buying the base pigments. Because if you have the PR254 and the PV19, you can mix that color yourself in any shade in between. In your opinion, the changes in the Van Gogh paints were okay, but the addition of a little titanium white to many yellows is not so good. They are less transparent now. Are they? In the Van Gogh? Oh, that's a pity. That's really a pity, because I think having very good transparent yellows is very important in any set. So I hope that they at least kept a couple of really transparent yellows in the collection then as well. I don't know about the Van Gogh. I saw they've also improved on that palette. But I haven't really looked into that. I have seen that in the Rembrandt collection, they have added a lot of bright single pigment colors. 331. It's got to be this one. Madder Lake Deep. This is a color I use a lot in skin tones. This is not the best paper, I have to say, and I also have to admit I don't even know what paper this is. I just saw this lonely little white page lying about and I thought, oh, that's perfect for my test. I don't know what, it's not the best of watercolor papers anyway. Oh, I don't have, this is a color I don't have, but there was something interesting to say about this. The 331 Rembrandt color is made of a PR83 and is actually natural alizarin crimson, which many artists go for because it's beautiful, only it is the color is very fugitive. So you can't use that if you're doing a commission, for instance, because all the reddish pink flowers will fade, just like so the flowers will in your home, I think. Okay, so then we move on to 366, which is quinacridone rose, and oh, I just love quinacridones. Even though I don't use that much pink, but and for a quinacridone rose, I have to say this looks a bit more violet than rose. For a rose, it's quite dark and bluish. And what's also funny is that in recent years, quinacridones have become so popular. I think a lot has changed when watercolors became popular for craft people as well. 366. I had this exact color I put on the wall of my bedroom a couple of years ago. It took 8 layers. It was the most expensive wall I've ever painted because it took 8 layers before it covered, because this pigment is so transparent. And then when I had it, I painted over it after 2 or 3 years, because you can't see the mosquitoes on this. So it was very hard hunting mosquitoes before I went to bed. So I'm just glancing over the set, and yeah, I think here in this area the Rembrandts are brighter. It's kind of simple. I should show my daughter that and say, you can still get the big box if you want. Okay, there's 535 Cerulean Blue Phthalo. Now this is something I find a pity, because it's just a mix of Chinese white and a phthalo blue, greenish, I think, no, just phthalo blue. And what I always love in cerulean is the cobalt. Usually it's made of a cobalt pigment, and cobalts, of course, there's rarely any true cobalt in student grade paints because they're so expensive, but I find that a pity. So 535, okay, that's this one. I love the granulation. Oh, I got something to tell about that. Hold on, I'll paint this one first. I actually made a discovery just now when I prepared this live stream. You can see, by the way, that there is a lot of white added to this, because the color is more opaque and it's more intense. And this is a very light color. Cerulean is, of course, oh, that was a little much. Cerulean is, of course, you know, sky blue, heavenly blue, so it should be quite light. Okay. Right, the phthalos, what I want to say to you is this, and this is it's something where I go with my hands in my hair. So on artistcreation.com, you can find an overview of all the pigments used in paints and some remarks and information about them. Very, very useful if you're starting to paint with artist grade paints. You simply have to learn about pigments. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense going there, except for, you know, you want the brightest of the brightest. But anyway, what it says when you go to PG7, so pigment green number 7, it says, phthalo colors have a tendency to granulate extremely. So, and it is the least granulating color in every set that I have. All the phthalos are just completely even. Why is that? Well, paint makers add additives to prevent this, so that in watercolor they are non-granulating. Oh no! Why? Why on earth would you tone down granulation? So what I really am curious about, and what I'm looking for, is that there will be a paint maker who says, you know what, let's do a phthalo color and add less additives, or none at all. And because I would like to see the granulation. I love granulation, and whenever I work in the blues, I always go for granulating blues. So all right, so Cobalt Blue Ultramarine. Who would have thought, right? Cobalt Blue Ultramarine. This is, I love this color in the Van Gogh collection, because it's a darker version of the cornflower blue, of Crete blue. There is this purple undertone. I love it. It's a very beautiful color. And this is an ultramarine pigment with white. And the student grade is with the Chinese white, which is, well, I always say a dirty kind of white, but it's not as bright, it's not as out there. And this expensive artist brand is done with titanium white. Okay, so 512. I'm picking up a lot of paint. You wouldn't say there is white in here, would you? So here you can see that there really is white in here. There's no doubt about it. There is absolutely white in here. And here is a lot less white, I think. Which of course, you know, this needs to be cheaper, this line, because it's a student line. So there's got to be a balance in, you know, fewer pigment, less pigments, more fillers, but also, you know, in the ratio of pigment. So there will be a lot more white in here and a lot less white in there and a lot more PB29, because PB29, I suspect, is more expensive than the white. Let's see. The only Van Gogh tube you have is 331 Madder Lake. 331, yeah. Which is very nice dark red, unfortunately. Oh, that's a pity. I don't know if they still have the 331 by Rembrandt, because I'm not sure if they carry it in the new collection. Manganese Blue hue. Yes, I like that too. I have it, although manganese can be, it depends on the colors you use around it, but it can be a little sharp. Although it depends on how much water you use, etc. I tend to use too little water. Okay, moving on to 506 Ultramarine Deep. Now this is pure ultramarine pigment. Therefore, it should granulate. At least a little bit. Now I'm expecting less granulation in the student quality. And I'm adding just a little bit more water to see if we can get some granulation going. Because for me, I use a lot of granulation is really a big part of my work, granulating pigments. So I tend to go for only that, the really granulating paints. Okay, 506. Yeah. So here's the artist quality, which seems a little brighter. This paper is not really super good watercolor paper, I can already tell. I think it's Fabriano Artistico, if I am correct. Okay, let's see what it does. So isn't it funny that this one is so much darker than that one? It's the same pigment. I always wonder what they do with pigments to make them look so different. Right, Prussian blue. This is a color I use a lot. Just like the Azos, just like the it has a little bit much paint, a little bit too little water. 508, and I find this an extremely beautiful color in student grade already. This is it looks like a phthalo, a greenish phthalo. It's super bright. And Prussian blues tend to be very different from so many brands. If you go to Indent Throne, Prussian, and Indigo, even Payne's Gray, some brands, you know, they don't ever buy a tube of paint with the name on it thinking you're buying the same paint as you do from another brand, because it's so often it's very different. Winsor Newton has a color when blah, blah, blah. Okay, yeah, Winsor Newton also has lovely colors. Yeah, granulation is fine, yeah. You have a tube of PR 54 by Van Gogh. You squeezed some of the smoke container, added a little bit of water, and left it for a while. I do that a lot. When my pans are empty, I always buy a tube and let it sit for I always let it dry. That's how I refill my pans. Okay, so 508 Prussian Blue. Here we go. Oh, this color has been replaced so often. I never tell you that, but actually I have a whole stash of colors. And look what happens. This is the same pigment, but now it's a lot darker. You see that? So there is, you know, this is minimal difference between the two brands. But there is a bit of difference. Okay, Seth Green. It's the only green I use a lot. This one is a composition, PY 129 and PG 7. And this one I noticed is quite light. It's not very strong in color, and here's where I'm used to the Rembrandt, which is a lot stronger. 623, where are you? Here. See, this is a color I always use. And this, the Van Gogh almost looks like an apple green. And the Rembrandt looks like a very beautiful, intense foliage green. I use it a lot to paint, when I paint trees, I use this color a lot for the foliage. Permanent green, 662. Now we get, there is a couple of colors I never use, so this also is a very old pen. Vintage. This is vintage paint. PG7 is not really my I don't really like it. Okay. So 662. Yeah. There's I bought this pen, but the paper was stuck, and even though I've used it already, it's not coming off. I think it's an old pen. These colors are actually very much alike. Hardly any difference between the two. Let's see what happens when, oh yeah, when we add water, there is some difference. The differences in color are so small. It's really, really good, the Van Goghs. I mean, when you look at these, there is so little difference, and these two, or at least from my point of view. Yeah, this is darker, more intense, but that one is already very super beautiful. And the Cobalt Ultramarine as well. Only here in the Ultramarine Deep, you can see that this one granulates beautifully. But what I find kind of, this one seems to granulate, the PB27, and the student quality as well. Always good news. Hooker's Green Deep. Who was Hooker's? Or Hooker? Well, does anyone know who was Hooker? Hookers. The white filler sank to the bottom, leaving the pure pigment on top. Pour that pigment into another container. Really? Oh. Okay. This one. Was there so much white filler in there? Doesn't look like it though. Oh, I've never done that. I've never tried to separate the paints from the filler yet. The only chemical experiment that I'm considering is trying to, I bought a few pigments secondhand a couple of years ago, and I've been meaning to make my own paints just to, you know, to understand the process and to, well, yeah, to understand the process. But I haven't yet. Yeah, but, you know, okay, that's interesting too, yeah. The color Cobalt Green Dark was always sold out when I wanted it. I was able to buy it recently as a pigment. I'm very happy about it. Okay, good. Cobalt Green Dark. I love it. I actually worked with Dale Rowney, an old tube. It's no longer, they don't carry it anymore. That pigment is also Cobalt Green Dark. That was super lovely, but my tube, I ran out. It's gone. I almost used up the last bit. Okay, 645. Let's see, where are you? Here. And that one looks a lot darker. So let's see. That? No, that can be, is it true? No, it's wrong. I made a mistake. This is a Veridian like color, this teal color. So, and fails are really, really, really hard to. Okay, now I gotta solve this one. So, let's solve it. I'm just gonna cut it out. And write this on it again. So this is 645 PG7 PY 150, and I'm gonna glue it on. Okay. Now, better luck next time, right? 645. Yeah, my hands were on there for cutting this little piece of paper. Still, it is a much, this is a different color. But this is also, you know, there is the PY, this is Azo Yellow Light, and this is the PY 150. And I suspect that PY 150 is an expensive, it's nickel azo, and it's cooler yellow, I think. And I think it's more expensive because in the whole artist range, there is a lot of PY 150 and not the PY 154. So, but the color is beautiful. It's intense too, but it's a little warmer than that one. Okay, now on to Veridian. I do not like Veridian. Purely personal preference, got nothing to do with the quality. I never use Veridian. You know, I have a tendency to buy boxes, full collections of pencils and everything. And in every one of my art sets, you will see I don't touch the Veridian. So this is a PG7. And now this was kind of a surprise. I didn't know this pigment, PG18. And that is the real Veridian. Whereas PG7 is a phthalo green blue shade. And this is a Veridian. So 616. Let's try and find it. Yeah, this is the correct one. So this should be a different color. Oh yeah, and it is. It doesn't have as much tinting strength. That's a quite, it's a very different color. See? But in this case, I think I would prefer that one. Yeah, cobalt pigments are expensive. They are always among the most expensive of a whole set. But I love them. This morning I rearranged all my color charts, and I made a color chart with only cobalt, and that's actually fantastic. It's just, I could just frame it and hang it on the wall because it's so lovely. The way I never used cobalt in the beginning. I don't know why. I think they were a little bit too cool for me. But then now that when I began to really appreciate the granulating colors and I got to know the cobalts more, you know, there was just, once I started, I wanted to have them all. But they are super expensive. And some of them are not very, they don't have much tinting strength. So then if you work with very intense color like I do, that you need a lot of paint of that. Okay, 227, this is like, somebody said to me that the other day, oh, that's the most boring color on my palette, the ochre. I disagree. I use ochre in nearly every painting. I don't know. It's great for skin colors. It's great for landscapes. It's great sometimes for base tones for things or for toning things down. I love it. Okay, 227 Rembrandt has got an addition of PY43, which I think was iron oxide. No, this is yellow iron oxide, and this is yellow iron oxide plus the PY43 natural yellow iron oxide. So this color should be closer to real ochre. And what's funny, my friend Amber gave me for my birthday a couple of years ago a set of ochres pigments to make paint out of. And I actually have, I think, 6 or 7 different ochres. It's really wonderful. And these are all natural pigments. So that's something I've been meaning to try. But I just don't want to mess it up. So I'm a bit nervous about trying that. Veridian by Turner. It's a little less bluish and looks more natural. I hear a lot of people about Turner, but I've never, ever ran into that paint. I only saw it, I think, Jackson's Art or Cheap Joe's. And with the whole Brexit thing and the COVID thing, shipping has become really expensive. So yeah, I am a big earth color fan too. And that being said, the Rembrandts have got some really, really super pretty earth tones that I still prefer over, or a lot of browns or earth tones I still prefer over any other color. We're going to get to that, but yeah, I use them a lot as well. I love paintings that at the moment there is, you know, I'm calling it the unicorn and mermaid palette. You see so many watercolorists doing these confetti-like colors, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that I really like paintings that also have a really dark side in them, or something that completely contrasts the outspoken colors. Okay, burnt sienna. Oh, that was really strange. This week I put some Paul Rubens paints into a palette to review, and they didn't do a good job with the earth tones because they were super light. I mean, this is a student grade, right? Paul Rubens says it's an artist grade paints, and then they can't do earth tones. I mean, and earth tones usually are very good with mostly any brand, but look how warm this color is. This is like a chestnut brown. I've always loved this color. This one has been replaced a lot, you know, in painting trees. I just showed you my, where are they? Oh, here. Just showed you the trees that I do with a lot of texture, and I have a couple of those with brown texture as well. And I love this as a red, warm, glowy under, you know, as I always use that as layers, as base layers for those trees, because I like it when even when you paint a really dark tree, when there is some, yeah, warm reddish brown peeping from underneath the layers. Okay, so 411, where are you? Aha, I already see it. That actually looks like a different color. Yeah, this is a PBR 7, so this is not going to be as bright, I think. I'm afraid. I might, maybe. No, that's a different color. But you can always brighten it up a little bit by adding a little bit of Azo in that. It's a little less vibrant. It's more intense in color. Tinting strength is higher. But this one is more, you know, for a base layer, this one seems a little bit more vivid. Hey, Caradwan, hello. You started with the earth color set from Creamer is really lovely, right? I love creamer, only I find they're super intense, but they are lovely. Yeah. Sennelier colors are also not so heavily pigmented. No. Well, they how shall I put it? I think there is a lot of pigment in it, but because of the formula of sennelier that is just so good for the glazing, it's that they are more transparent in a way. Um, do you know what I mean? I think they do have the pigments, but there is just even in the earth tones, usually earth tones, they have bigger pigment particles, heavier, so they feel a bit heavier on the paper. Whereas for instance, phthalo almost feels like air. It just explodes straight off your paper. Then the earth tones they settle into the pores of your paper. But I think the senneliers have this quite unique. Although I've heard M. Graham's have it too, but I don't have M. Graham's. But suddenly it's more like in glazes. I don't know how to say it, but it's something to do with the consistency of the paint. If I could, I would so much love to. I know Sennelier's got a lot of videos online about their paints, just like Winsor & Newton's been doing. Talens, I don't think, but I dare not say that they don't have it because maybe they do and I've just not noticed it for a year, just like the change of palette. But yeah, sometimes I would like to know how they do that, um, why the differences are there. It's something I find very interesting. Sennelier on 60% discount. Yeah, I've noticed that Sennelier is trying to win back some ground in the watercolor market. You can actually get the full set of the Senneliers for 400 and something dollars. I think it was a Jackson Art. I actually got it as a present from one of the viewers a couple of years ago. And very recently, only this week, ugh, I have a lot here. I have put all my Sennelier paints, because I've got tubes, into a box, and I've ordered mixing palettes for, this is Derwent pencil box, but I don't like Derwent art pencils very much. So I put them into a box. I don't use them every day. And this is the whole Sennelier collection that I poured into pans. And which one is super, super good is the 116 white. That is so far the best white watercolor that I have. And I actually ordered 2 tubes of that on the side too for refills because I'm going to use this a lot. This is wonderful paper. This is, like I said, this is my palette that I use for glazing. So what often happens is that you will see both a big set like this on my table next to the Rembrandts or the Schminkies and then there is the Daniel Smith, the was it Primatech, or am I saying the right word? The granulating colors and the mineral colors, the real mineral colors. That's what so those are the paints you will often find on my work table. But this set now, well, affordable. What is affordable? It used to cost about $1,000 and now it's about 40. So that's 400, sorry. 400. So that's 400 and something. So yeah, I got that as a gift a couple of years back, which really surprised the socks of my feet, I can tell you. Never expected that. But yeah, to me, Sennelier is just at the top, just like Rembrandt, Schminky, Sennelier, and Daniel Smith. And Martha Graham's I have tried a swatch, but I have just a little bit of paint, so I haven't really been painting with that yet. Okay, but on to the comparison because I'm talking a lot. Oh, I think it's because there are tube paints too. Okay, tube paints are good. Cezanne. Carolyn, if you struggle with paper, have you tried the latest Winsor & Newton 100% cotton professional watercolor paper? It is expensive, but it's really, really good. I find that is even better than Arches. It's preference again. There are people who will just murder me for just even saying that out loud, but I find it depends on the techniques and on your work. My work tends to be either illustrative or with a lot of texture, etc. And then I find that the Winsor Newton is best of all. Fabriano was completely horrible. I did a review on that, so you can check that out. The Fabriano professional, very expensive watercolor paper I bought 3 pads of that I'm totally sorry about that I did because I found it horrible. And because the paper buckled way more than a professional watercolor paper should. I haven't tried Cezanne yet, but I really want to try that one. Yeah, 60. Well, I know that Sennelier at the moment is very, very affordable, but the Rembrandts too, at least here in the Netherlands, were much more affordable than I remembered. So I'm just checking out your the chat now. Okay, that's all about a store. I'm probably not near you, so I'm leaving that conversation for you. Okay, so 409, burnt umber. That is also a color I use a lot. And umber greenish. Oh, this looks like chocolate. Sorry. Oh, I'm getting hungry now. It's Sunday, and on Sundays we always have a brunch, and then we don't eat until dinner. So usually in the afternoon, somewhere along the line, my stomach begins to protest. Sorry. Okay, moving on. 409, and this is a mix PR101 and P black, a black pigment, and now we're comparing that to a PBR7. It's going to be a different color. Oops. It's like a rusty brown. I like it very much, but I also like that one. Oh, when I see pigments like these, I see trees, and I love painting trees, so makes me feel like getting on with it. Okay, so sepia. Well, that's for 16. Sepia is one of my favorite colors. Only I actually own some real sepia, and other than that, sepia is always a mix of colors, and it's always different. And I like this one that actually looks like squid ink, because that's what it is, right? But some brands, you know, I don't know what they do, what they think sepia is or was, but I've actually put on quite a bit. Okay. So look how intense that is, and this is student quality, right? Okay, so now is sepia, and this pan is almost empty. I've also replaced this numerous times already, but there. Same mix of pigments. Pigment Black 7 and PR101. And yet it looks more greenish. The student quality, they're both super intense colors. The student quality looks a bit warmer, I think. Isn't that lovely? I like the dark colors. Okay, so now Payne's Gray. When I filled depends with the Paul Rubens this week. I found out they didn't add a black, not a neutral tint, not a paint gray, not a Van Dyke brown, just, you know, very bright colors. And that was, I think, a big mistake. I think there should always be a dark color to tone things down. So this is very obviously a mixture between a black pigment and the PV19, because it actually feels purplish when you lay it down. So now moving on to 708. And this is also black pigment with PB15. And it indeed feels a little bit more bluish. But again, both are super intense colors. So here it's just, if you're deliberating which color to buy, if you need a paint gray, then, you know, the difference is minimal, okay? So, but there is a difference. This one is more bluish, and this one has a very slight violet undertone, but just, you wouldn't notice it if you didn't know what pigment was in there. But it is there. Okay, now Chinese white. I never use Chinese white. This is also an old pigment. I always use opaque covering white when I do. So I don't really get the point of Chinese white in any set. And I'm purposely painting over the text here to see how transparent it is. Sort of like I just said, a dirty white. Okay, and now, see, this is much cleaner. So here, I think here you can see the filler and the pigment. It's both pigment white 4, but this is almost a titanium buff. So you could actually use this one, the Van Gogh, I think, as a titanium buff, because it's a lot darker. Okay, I'm just checking out Caput Mortem. Yes, I like that too. Although it depends, because there are Caput Mortems that sort of split up into 2 different pigments. I like that when they have a brown and a purple pigment in them. Let's see. Yeah, a warping block of watercolor paper. That's kind of horrible. Well, I think it also depends on how much water you use. I always use a lot of water to working with a lot of granulating pigments. I work with a lot of water, and then, you know, there's always more distortion. And I have to say, I am too lazy to wet the paper first. So I always use very heavy paper, and I prefer blocks, or I stick it onto a board or something. But then still you get it. And then the Fabriano was just horrible. Cotton paper is not so important to me. No, it depends, Aski Luna, it really depends on what techniques you use. And I remember that I have always felt afraid of buying 100% cotton paper, because I thought, you know, paper is paper. But then one day, I don't remember when, I came across this Winsor & Newton paper. I think it was on sale somewhere, and I thought, hey, let's try it, because it was as expensive as the paper I normally bought. And I remember using it, and I was, for the techniques that I use, I was just so amazed at how much more control it gave me over the paints, pigment, over the granulation and the final outcome, how much better I could layer. Because I actually, this painting, I think, has over 40 to 50 layers of paint in them. So then, you know, you have to have really strong paper, or otherwise, you know, you will brush away the lining of the paper or the top layer, or you will, you know, you will pick up the paint from the paper. So for me, I found out it is important that I use that paper. Only Arches, everyone said, oh, you have to go to Arches, but somehow it doesn't really work for me, not as well as the others. So Yeah, it's so personal. I mean, I can tell you what is best, but that's just nonsensical. That's, I think, why I'm trying to show you that, there are differences between papers and paints. Only about the Fabriano 100% cotton paper, I am very adamant that is not the quality that you should get for that money. That's something I'm a little upset about. I could have spent that money on good paper, and I feel sad for having these 3 blocks of paper now that I'm going to be cutting up and using for something else. So I won't be, it won't be here doing nothing. Um, but I had different idea. I had a different plan in mind. But other than that, I mean, if you just like give these paints a look. Now, most of them are dry or dry enough to show you, but really, is there a lot of difference in when you look at this palette in quality of color? I mean, of course, watching this, you now know that all these colors are Rembrandt, so they are more highly pigmented, etc., etc. But do you actually see a lot of difference on paper? Because one thing that I am amazed about is that so many people who start with watercolor have the feeling that they have to start with artist grade paints, whereas I am inclined to say, you know what, maybe you should just try student grade first, because you're going to be you're going to be ruining your family budget. Just, slow down. um because with artist grade paints come the complication that you have to learn about pigments, and pigments only make matter really a lot when you need the pigments for certain effects or color mixes or something. And if you're just starting to paint or like for hand lettering, etc., I'm not sure if people, well, everyone has got a different budget, but let me say what motivated me to do this is that, you know, I am here on the internet with my paint collection, which is quite absurd, and I am totally privileged to have so many paints, especially when sometimes viewers send you paints you could never afford yourself. I mean, I am not being paid to review all this. I'm doing this from either my own budget, or sometimes people send things to me. And then I show them because I want to show people, I want to share my passion with the pigments, but I also want to show people what it's like, and so that they can, there are so many people wanting to know which paints they should buy. Um, there is not, of course, a very straight answer to that because it's very personal. But I've had emails from people and sometimes public response to my videos. People who don't have the budget. There have been quite a few requests by people saying, "Can you send me leftovers?" or, well, all kinds of things, because people think that they can't paint without artist grade paints. And I think my daughter has been very clear about this. I said, "Mom, I don't want these Rembrandt paint, because when I get into the artist grade paints, I have to know about these pigments, and I don't want to know. I just want to paint." And she mixes with, I think, for a 24 color set. She says all the mixes are good. They're light, fast. They do exactly what they need to do. And she actually likes it that they are a little less loaded with pigment. Um, Brands like Old Holland are a nightmare to her because you can't control them. Blocks and Old Holland, those are two brands of color that are super intense in pigment, but you really got to know how to tame those to get a well-balanced painting. So she hates that. And but she says, no, I like the Van Gogh better. As she's tried my Rembrandts. Um, and I just wanted to show you because I already suspected that. And I also noticed that there were just very few people who have compared these two. But I do remember I like them as equal. I like them as much. And as you can see, uh, just remove a couple of things that were in front of the window, so now there is a lot more light. But as you can see, that the colors are not that far apart at all. I mean, the sap green is obviously more intense. You know, where there is a lot of water, they're about the same. But here, where there is a lot of paint, you can see there is a difference. But the permanent green, it's the same. The hooker's green is very obviously different pigments. It's a warmer and a cooler green. The Veridian is very different. So there you could make a choice to say, okay, but I prefer the PG 18. But then when you get to this row, there's very, very little difference. Here the quinacridone rose is much darker, but over here it's a little bit more towards the purple, so it's a cooler color. And this one is a little bit less dense, and maybe the fillers are a little bit whitish or yellowish. So this one looks a little bit warmer. You know, here I don't see a lot of difference. Here this one looks a little brighter. That one looks a little bit darker, just a tad. Here the Ultramarine Deep, this one is a true blue, and this one is going more towards the purple. I think here the Prussians are the same. And well, here in the yellows, when I started out, I felt that these were all much brighter than these were, but now that they have fully dried, yeah, just, you know, this one looks a little bit more clean than that one. And this one too looks a little, yeah, that one. Maybe they're a bit cleaner because there is less filler in, but I'm not sure because I don't know what exactly they do to that paint to make it cheaper. Here, the permanent orange is obviously much brighter than that one. But that being said, this is a combination of different pigments too. So you can say if this has got to do with the quality of the intensity of the pigments, or that is a pigment difference. The Vermilion is darker and more intense, but how often are you going to use it this intensely? If you use it this intensely, it's the same. Permanent red light, this one is more warm, and that's the Rembrandt, because there's PY 154 in it. It's a yellow pigment, and this is just red, so this one is a little warmer. And here is a difference. The PR 254 is a different color. It's more reddish, and this one is a little bit more purplish because there is violet in them. But if I was to advise anyone who was starting, then I think I would say, you know, with you, this is only a 24 set. There is also a 48 color set available of both brands. And I don't see, I don't think either is really much better than the other one. I have experience in mixing colors in the Van Gogh and the Rembrandts. Maybe the Rembrandts are a little bit cleaner in the mixes than the Van Goghs, but, you know, not. I think the difference, like for instance, between Cotman and the Winsor & Newton Artist, that is a much bigger difference. I think especially when I ordered my youngest daughter the big box, that was very recently, that was about 4 or 5 months ago. I was very disappointed in the tinting strength of any of those colors. That was not what they used to be. So I don't know, maybe they have taken their paints to China to manufacture. I don't know. But these colors I think are absolutely lovely. So I hope it just gives you an idea of the difference between expensive, you know, all the right ones are much more expensive. And yeah, that it gave you an idea, an answer to your question, whether you need to buy student or artist grade paints. And then that being said, Van Gogh has added a lot of beautiful colors and effect colors as well as Rembrandt. So the only color I've never seen in student grade before is PG50, which is like a turquoise blue. That is a pigment, and that's one that I have to buy that in a professional grade. Sometimes I've seen in very cheap sets from Asia that there are colors who look like that, but then when you paint with them, they're very obviously a mix of 2 pigments plus white, for instance, which is not necessarily bad, but it's different. It's not the same. Okay, I'm gonna see. Let's see. I'm gonna respond. Depends on the paper. Da, da, da. Let's see. Jack Humphrey says, I like Van Gogh. I like Van Gogh. Main drawback is a color range and that there are more mixes used. Yeah, but that's something you will always find in student grades. I mean, they have to make it affordable. So, but you know, that being said, I think we had this example, the permanent red light, in which the student grade was a single pigment PR254, and the professional paint was PR255 plus PY154. So then the professional is actually a two pigment color. So, but what you have to realize is that both these brands, the Van Gogh and the Rembrandt, have been updated. They have a new color palette and many changes have been made. And I am awaiting the brochure about those changes, and so that I can compare. But I wanted to show you what I have now. Wanted to work with what I have at the moment, and there may be a lot of things different. I know that Rembrandt has added a lot of single pigment colors to it, so I'm not sure about the Van Gogh yet. But I think Van Gogh is one of the best, if not the best, student quality paints. Etival. Yeah, Etival is lovely. I have that paper as well. But I use that for my illustrative work mostly because if you put a lot of water on it, it will buckle. Okay, let's see. Cellulose paper is generally bad. Yeah, well, bad. Yeah, it all depends on your, it all depends on the technique you use. I once did a review for Home Hobby, and they sent me a pad with, I think, 6 or 10 sheets of paper, which was of course very cheap paper, but that actually surprised me. It was pretty good. So not many details now. Let's see. Fabriano's non-cotton paper for acrylics, and the sizing is good. Did you try the Fabriano's non-cotton paper for acrylics for watercolor? Colors remain brilliant, but the texture is too pronounced. The texture of the paint, you mean, Caradwen? You prefer the ones on the right, yeah. I don't know how this comes across. I'm just looking at my own screen now, and on my own screen, I see I don't see that much of a difference between the two. You don't like the structure of CP Studio either? CP? What is CP Studio? Askia Luna. You don't like the structure of the CP Studio either. The shop where I always buy, unfortunately, doesn't have torchon. Oh, that's paper. Okay. Torchon paper. Yeah. Torchon paper is very, very, it's got a lot of texture on it, and it absorbs a lot of water. I usually work with hot pressed papers if I can. You're welcome, Caradwen. Van Gogh Veridian looks nicer. Yeah, it's much brighter. It's much brighter than the other one. They often add titanium white. Are you sure, Caradwen? Because I noticed something really strange about this. I noticed that in some colors, they added, like here, with the Van Gogh Cerulean Blue Phthalo, they added that there was two pigments, PB15 and PW4. So this is phthalo blue with zinc white. That is also the Chinese white. And then in the Rembrandt, set, they had PB15 with PW6, the titanium white. So it looks like they add the zinc white to it, or the Chinese white, which could be an explanation, because if you see how much more yellow it is, and then you look at these that are, well, it's only super slightly, but they are slightly less bright. So that could have been done with the addition of this, I think. Maybe. I'm not sure. But I was wondering why else they would have done it. I think this is clearer, and I was wondering if titanium white is more expensive pigment than the Chinese white. Okay, you're gone for a moment, Askelina. Okay, paint and hiding. Fun fact. Rembrandt Rose is PR122. Oh, Van Gogh, yeah. They use an opaque filler, and that's why Van Gogh. Okay, yeah, well, that's the same thing then. Here with the permanent red light, the Van Gogh is single pigment, and the Rembrandt is two pigments. Paint and hiding. Yeah, that is funny, isn't it? That's a surprise to me too. I know there's no phthalo blue here, but would you happen to know if the Van Gogh phthalo blue is green or red shade? No. Do I know that? I don't think I do. I have to think about this for a while. I have so many paints and I'm not sure. I don't think I have that one. No, I don't think I can tell you that. No. No, I'm sorry, paint and hiding. I think if you want to know, what you can do is go to the Talens site and look for Van Gogh watercolors, and there you can they will have the pigment numbers there, so there you can see what pigment number it is. And do you know where to look it up? Because there is a really good site. That's where I go to every time. It's artcreation.com. And they're artistcreation.com. And there they have an overview of all the pigments, and they are organized per color. So there you can look up the pigment number, and you can see if it's a blue shade or a red shade, or a green shade or a red shade. Let's see, zinc white. Yeah, I think it's zinc white Cardoon. I think so. I'm not sure. PB19's worth checking out. It's cleaner than PR. I think this is a discussion between others. Handprint. Yeah, I've seen Handprint site. I like that site very much, but what I like very much about Artist Creation is the way the site works. Because I've been looking up this set of pigments to check out light fastness, which is super good for the Van Gogh. Only the permanent red deep and the permanent red light have a light fastness of 2, and the rest is all very light fast. That is one of the advantages of a student grade, by the way, that they look for light fast pigments, so you don't have to worry about that. Whereas in artist grade, you always have to take a very good look at the pigments you use. But I like how I can look up all these pigment numbers very quickly. So I do that on Artist Creation. I sometimes go to Handprint as well when I'm not sure, or I do check them out both. But this is my go-to database for colors. Oh, vanilla milk, good. Oh, I long for something as well. My throat actually hurts from talking. Opera Rose. Opera Rose is really great. Only I actually have 2 or 3 tubes from different brands, but the setback is that it's impossible to reproduce. So I can't use that in artwork that I need to reproduce. And also it's not light fast, so I can also not use it in commissions. I can only use it in my own sketchbook. Handprint, yeah. Van Gogh Phthalo Blue PB15. Yeah, I think PB15 is actually a separate pigment. I think it's just I think PB15 is neither red shade nor green shade. Because it's I thought it's a separate pigment. So if can you look it up at artistcreation.com, the PB15, because I believe it is there's PB15.1 and .3. Yeah, and phthalo blue is wonderful. I love it, you know, just by seeing a phthalo blue in color. I absolutely love it. Only I find that in my work, I hardly ever use it. I only use it as undertone, as underpaintings for stuff. Because in first place, it's got enormous tinting strength. So if you can't, you can hardly pick it back up when, you know, there are colors you can just re-wet and pick up with the tissue and then it's gone. But phthalo blue is unforgiving in that sense. So um, I only use this very light washes or, you know, sometimes in for skies, etc. Um, without a number should be green shade. Yeah. Okay. I actually ordered a phthalo blue green shade from my art supply store a week ago, and then they accidentally sent me a watercolor stick red shade by Daniel Smith. Now I have both, and I only use it very little. One tube will last you forever. Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't think that the phthalos that I have I've replaced already. No. Okay, so my comparison is finished. I like doing this for you. I hope you enjoyed it too, your Sunday afternoon or maybe morning because you're everywhere in the world, of course. And what I can tell you is that I want to do a full swatching of my Rembrandt set. And I could ask my daughter if she's got different Van Gogh colors. Um, and then I have a lot of comparisons coming up, and I have about 14 other paints and brands that I have yet to review because I have not been very active for quite a long time. So there's quite a few videos that I am planning to do in the coming time, although not every day because I got to work in between as well. So I am going to have something for a very late lunch and see you again soon. Thank you very much for watching. And if you liked watching, then please like my video or subscribe because it's going to help me get more views for my channel. And that will be great because then I can do more. I can buy more paints and review more. Thank you very much. Bye. Now I have to figure out how to stop this. Oh, bye.